right. Dolphins at daybreak. Dolphins at daybreak. So we're going to finish the second half of the book, which is chapter 5 to the end. Chapter 5 to the end. And I just wanted to say, my name's Kelly, and I started doing this because I teach kindergarten. And the day we got shut down from COVID, I really missed reading for my kids. And so I said, I'm going to figure out YouTube and read to my kids every day. So I'm going to try to read. I've been trying to read a couple chapters or a book a day, but I've been trying to do it every day. I did miss a few, but I'm going to do every day. I'm going to try to do every day for a year. And if you like what I'm doing, you can share or hit subscribe. And so I'm going to finish this book today. So it's Dolphins at Daybreak, Magic Treehouse number 9, and it's going to be 5 to the end. 2 eyes. What's a ship's log? Said Annie. It's a diary of an ocean trip, said Jack. He peered at the computer screen and read a log entry. Monday, July 5th. Hey, that was just last week, said Jack. He read further. Collected rocks and shell samples, mapped ocean floor, found tiny crack in hull. That's like your notebook, said Annie. Yeah, the oceanographer was writing notes on the computer, said Jack. Jack and Annie read further down. Tuesday, July 6th. Crack has widened. Must return to Reef soon. A crack? Where? Said Annie. I don't know, said Jack. He read further. Wednesday, July 7th. More tiny cracks. Cannot be fixed. Heading back to Reef today. Uh-oh, this doesn't sound good, said Jack. He read further. Thursday, July 8th. Defective sub. Return to Reef. Leave for helicopter to transport to junkyard. Defective means broken, right? Said Annie. Yep, said Jack. So this sub is broken, right? Said Annie. Yep, said Jack, and it was waiting to be taken away by a helicopter to a junkyard. Yikes, said Annie. Now we really have to get back, said Jack. Let's try pressing the wave picture, said Annie. She pressed the waves picture on the computer screen. Here it is. The mini sub began to rise slowly. Oh, good, said Jack. The sub went past a small coral mountain. It went past schools of fish and waving plants. Oh, gasped Annie. Jack gasped too. 2 eyes were staring out from behind a giant sea plant. They looked human. They were as big as golf balls. The sub moved past the giant plant. Jack breathed a sigh of relief. Whew. What? Whose? Sputtered Annie. Don't ask, said Jack. They stared back at the plant. Just then, a long arm came out from behind it. Then another arm came out, and then another arm came out, and then another, and another, and another, and another, and another, and another. Jack and Annie stared in horror at a giant octopus. It's coming after us, said Annie. Slowly, the octopus crept through the water. Its 8 arms reached for the mini-sub. Chapter 6. Crack. The octopus hugged the mini-sub. Each of its 8 arms had 2 rows of suckers. The suckers stuck to the windows. The mini-sub stopped. The octopus stared at Jack and Annie with large human eyes. I don't think it wants to hurt us, whispered Annie. It's just curious. I'm going to research it, said Jack. His hands shook as he flipped through the pages of the ocean book. He found a picture of an octopus and read aloud. The octopus tends to be gentle and shy creature. Sometimes, though, curiosity gets the best of it and it comes out of hiding. Oh, see, I told you he's shy, said Annie. She yelled to the octopus, Hi, I'm Annie. He's Jack. Oh, brother, moaned Jack. He read further. But the octopus has huge strength. Each of his arms, or tentacles, has many suckers which act like rubber suction cups. It is nearly impossible to free an object from their grasp. Oh, great, said Jack. We'll never get rid of this thing. Just then, Jack felt a drop hit his arm. Water. He looked up at the ceiling. Uh-oh, said Annie. A thin crack ran along the ceiling. Some smaller cracks branched out from it. Water dripped from the cracks. We found the cracks, said Annie. The octopus better let go, said Jack, before the whole ceiling breaks. Let go, please, Annie shouted at the octopus. Please. The creature blinked as if trying to understand her. Please, 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 she shouted. Come on, Annie, said Jack. It doesn't care if you're polite. The octopus blinked at Jack. Get out of here, Jack yelled at it. Now, beat it, scram. The octopus shot a cloud of black liquid into the water and disappeared into the dark cloud. Its long tentacles trailed through the water. The mini-sub started to rise slowly again. You hurt her feelings, said Annie. I don't think so. Something bothered Jack. He looked back at the ocean book. He read to himself. The octopus squirts black ink to escape its enemies. One of its main enemies is the shark. Oh no, said Jack. What's wrong, said Annie. Jack looked out the window. The water was growing clear again. A shadowy figure moved toward the mini-sub. What is that? Whispered Annie. The fish was way bigger than the dolphins, and it had a very weird head. Jack could feel his heart nearly stop. A hammerhead shark, he breathed. We're in big trouble now. Hammerhead shark. Chapter 7. Remain calm. The shark swam behind the coral. Where did it go? Said Annie, peering out the window. It doesn't matter, said Jack. We have to get to the top. Oh, more water's coming in, said Annie. Yeah, I know. Come on, faster, Jack ordered the mini-sub. Faster. Even more water's coming in, said Annie. Lots more. Jack looked up. The water wasn't dripping now. It was spurting. A few seconds, said Jack. Suddenly, the mini-sub burst out of the water. It bobbed onto the waves like a cork. The ocean sparkled all around it. Safe, shouted Annie. Jack felt the water rising around his bare feet. Not really, he said. Oops, said Annie. The octopus must have made cracks in the bottom, too. The water was up to their ankles now. Jack looked out. He saw the reef in the distance. The sub can make it. It doesn't look that far, he said. Go, 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 said Annie. She pressed one of the steering keys. Suddenly, the screen went blank. What's happening, said Jack. Annie pressed the key again. Then Jack pressed the other pictures. Nothing happened. It's dead, said Annie. Oh, great, said Jack. Now the water was up to their knees. I guess we'll have to swim, said Jack. He took a deep breath. Right, said Annie. It's really a good thing we had swimming lessons this summer. Right, said Jack. And it's a bad thing we just saw the shark. Jack quickly found the picture of the shark in the book. He read aloud. If you ever see a shark in the water, don't splash. Swim calmly away. Jack closed the book. We better do the breaststroke, said Annie, so we won't splash. Yeah, and stay really close, said Jack. Very close, said Annie. Her eyes were wide, but she seemed very calm. Jack took a deep breath. He tried to be calm, too. He calmly took off his glasses. He calmly put them and the book into his pack. He calmly put the pack onto his back. Annie opened the hatch. Be calm, said Annie. She slipped out of the mini-sub. Help, Jack said calmly. He held his nose. Then he calmly lowered himself into the ocean. There they go, getting into the ocean to swim. Glad they had swimming lessons, right? Chapter 8, Swim for Your Life. Jack moved his arms slowly. He moved his legs slowly. He gently pushed the water out of his way as he did the breaststroke. Calm, 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 he told himself. Annie swam beside him. They headed for the reef. All was calm. Then Jack saw something out of the corner of his eye. A dark fin was zigzagging through the water. It was heading towards them. Jack wanted to splash. He wanted to yell, but he remained calm. I better not tell Annie, he thought. She'll stay calmer if she doesn't know. But he began to swim faster, and then faster. Annie went faster too. They both swam as fast and as calmly as they could. Sometimes Annie went even faster than Jack, which made him swim even faster and faster. Jack was so scared that he wasn't tired at all. He was swimming for his life and for Annie's life too. He didn't look back to see if the shark was still there. He didn't want to know. He just kept his eyes on the treehouse in the distance, and he kept swimming. Jack and Annie swam and swam and swam. It took forever for the treehouse to get a little closer. Jack realized the reef was farther away than he thought. He kept swimming, but his arms and legs started to feel heavy. Annie was struggling too. "Float," she said, "float." Jack and Annie turned on their backs. They floated the way they had learned in swimming class. "We'll rest just a minute," Jack thought, "then we'll keep going." But the more Jack floated, the more tired he felt. Soon he was too tired even to float. He started to sink. And then he felt something. His heart stopped. Something pushed at him in the water. It was slippery and alive. Had the hammerhead caught up with him? Jack shut his eyes and waited for the worst. He waited and waited. Finally, he opened his eyes. In front of him was a shiny gray head, a dolphin's head. The dolphin pushed Jack with his nose. It made happy clicking noises. Click, 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 click. "Hooray!" cried Annie. "Yay!" Jack looked over at her. She was clinging to the fin of another dolphin. Her dolphin was moving through the water. Jack grabbed the fin of his dolphin. Then the two dolphins swam smoothly through the water, pulling Jack and Annie toward the reef. Chapter 9. Ouch. The sun shone on the ocean. It sparkled like a diamond. Jack felt safe now. His dolphin was taking good care of him. Ah, so nice of the dolphin. The dolphin slowed down as they neared the reef. Jack lowered his feet. He felt the bumpy coral. He let go of his dolphin's fin and stood up in the water. Annie stood there too. Then she threw her arms around her dolphin and gave her a big hug. "Thank you, Suki," she cried, and she kissed the dolphin's nose. Mwah. Suki tossed her head back and clicked at Annie. "Kiss Sam now," Annie said to Jack. "You're nuts," said Jack. Then he put his flippers around, but Sam nuzzled Jack's head, and then he put his flippers around Jack's neck. Jack couldn't resist. He threw his arms around the dolphin and gave him a quick kiss. Sam nodded and made clicking sounds too. It sounded like laughter. Then he turned to Suki. The two dolphins chattered to each other for a moment, and then they nodded at Jack and Annie and swam gracefully away. "Bye, Suki. Bye, Sam," Annie shouted. "Thanks," Jack shouted. The dolphins leapt into the air. Then they dove back into the water with a big splash. Jack and Annie laughed. "I wish we could swim like that," said Jack. Jack and Annie watched the dolphins until they disappeared. "I miss them already," Annie said softly. "Me too," said Jack. He sat down in the shallow water. "I'm really tired," he said. Oh, Annie sat beside him. "Me too." The warm water lapped around their shorts and t-shirts. Jack pulled off his pack. He took out his glasses and put them on. They were blurry with water. "Guess what?" said Annie. "What?" said Jack. "I saw the shark when we were swimming," Annie said. "But I didn't tell you. I wanted you to stay calm." And Jack stared at her. "I saw it too. I just swam faster, so you would swim faster." "And I swam faster," said Annie, "so you would swim faster. I guess we both swam double fast then." He shook his head with wonder. "What now?" said Annie. "We go home," said Jack. "But we haven't solved Morgan's riddle yet," said Annie. Jack sighed. He pulled his notebook out of his pack. It was soaked. He pulled out the ocean book. It was soaked too. "We failed," he said. "My research is all wet. We'll never be master librarians now." Jack put everything away. "Let's go," he said sadly. He stood up. Then he started across the pink reef towards the treehouse. Annie followed him. "Ouch," said Annie. "What's wrong?" Jack looked back. "I stepped on something." Annie bent down to rub her foot. "What? Is that a shell?" "Yeah, this." She picked up a large gray shell. "Boy, it's rough. Rough and gray as a rock." "And plain as plain can be," whispered Jack. They had found the answer. The shell looked like a clamshell, only bigger and with more ridges. "How could this ugly shell be the answer to the riddle?" said Jack. "What about the part that says there's great beauty in me?" "Wait. Research," said Jack. He opened the soaked ocean book. The pages were stuck together, but he was able to turn a few. He found a picture of the gray shell. He read, "Divers search for oysters in deep waters, but sometimes oysters wash up on reefs or beaches. Inside some oysters you can find a pearl. The pearl's natural beauty is what makes it a treasure." "It must have a pearl inside," said Jack. And he peered into the crack between the two halves of the shell. I can't see anything, she said. How does a pearl get way in there, anyway? Jack read aloud from the wet page. Sometimes a grain of sand will get between the oyster's shell and its skin. This irritates the oyster, so it makes a pearly material to surround the grain of sand. In this way, over a few years, a pearl is formed. I can't tell if there's a pearl in there or not, said Annie. Maybe you should bang it against a rock, said Jack. Now that would really irritate the oyster, said Annie. Yeah, said Jack. I guess that would make it pretty mad. For sure. Maybe you should just leave it alone, said Annie. She gently put the oyster back into the water. But how will we know if oyster is the right answer to the riddle, said Jack. Morgan said we'll know, said Annie. Come on. Jack pushed his glasses into place. Then he and Annie picked up their shoes and socks. They climbed through the window of the treehouse. Morgan's scroll was lying on the floor. It was open. Look, said Annie, look. She and Jack stared at the scroll. The riddle had faded away, and in its place was one shimmering word. Oyster. Morgan's magic, whispered Annie. Jack let a huge sigh. We got it right, he said. And here's the Pennsylvania book, said Annie. Let's go home. She opened the book. She pointed to a picture of the Frog Creek woods. I wish we could go there, she said. The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin. The wind blew harder and harder. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 10, The True Pearl. Dawn light slanted into the treehouse. No time at all had passed since they left. Day was breaking. Jack rolled up the ancient scroll and he tucked it into the corner. We solved the first riddle, he said. 3 more to go. I don't see another scroll, said Annie. Maybe tomorrow we'll get the next riddle. That's okay, said Jack. I think I need a rest and to dry out. His t-shirt and shorts were still soaked. His backpack, too. Only his shoes and socks were dry. And this needs to dry out, too, said Annie. She put the wet ocean book in a patch of sunlight. Then Jack and Annie climbed down the ladder. They walked through the woods, through the leafy shadows and the golden light. They left the woods and started down their street. You know, we should have found the answer to the riddle right away, said Jack. The oyster was on the reef all along. I know, but we wouldn't have had so much fun, said Annie. Fun, said Jack. You call being squeezed by an octopus and chased by a shark fun? That's them walking through the Frog Creek woods. Don't forget the dolphins, Annie said. Jack smiled. Right, he said. The dolphins made up for everything. The dolphins were fun. I guess they were the true pearl and the oyster, Annie said. Yep, said Jack. I wonder what Sam is doing right now. Sam? Annie grinned at him. You're nuts, she said. They climbed their steps and went into their house. We're back, Annie shouted. Did you get your shoes wet there, Mom called. Oh, not one bit, called Jack. Then he and Annie slipped up the stairs to change their clothes. The end. All right. Dolphins at Daybreak. The end. Again, thanks for listening. Click like or subscribe, and I will see you for the next one very soon. Tonight, tomorrow, see you soon.